there, Snappy Dressers. I'm the Ratpack 3-piece, and welcome back to me watching TV shows. I don't have a name for this show yet. Anyway, I am going to start with Gravity Falls. I didn't get any comments on the last video. Thanks for that, guys. But I did get a lot more views than I usually get on videos, so there's that. It was super long, though. I will try to cut it down just a smidge. Also, I apologize for the echo in this room. This room has tile and like wide space. I keep looking at the viewfinder. I need to stop looking at the viewfinder. The camera is right here. One of these days I'll get this. Anyway, after watching Star vs. the Forces of Evil, I'm actually really excited to watch this because it's another Disney Channel show. And, that was my knee! Actually, that happens all the time. I don't know why I'm so expressive about that. I'm just that excited, because, honestly, I feel like I'm kind of overhyping. That's what I'm scared of right now. Like, I'm going to overhype this show and it's not going to be as good as I think it is. But my friend says that this show is like one of her absolute favorites and continues to, and I quote, rock her world to this day. So that's some pretty high praise, especially from someone who watches a lot of animated content. I'm going to leave the camera running, and I'm going to try to record as much of my reactions to the show as possible. This is going to be a bit of a different format than it was last time. So my reactions are probably going to be slightly more live, but because of that, I'm not going to have the chance to retake certain lines. So I'm probably going to stumble. I'm probably going to mess up. This is going to be largely unscripted. But you know, hey, we'll see what happens. I've caught a little bit of like snippets of the show here and there, just flipping through channels. So I'm not completely blind to this one, like I was with Star vs. Evil. But yeah, we'll let's see what you got, Gravity Falls. Let's see what you got. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. That's it. That was a good cold open. I liked that. Oh. I mean, it's really good. Like, if you're going to, like, if I'm going to break it down and analyze it like I do with everything, because I hate enjoying things, it's really good. It provides the amount of intrigue that you're going to want. It gets you, like, sort of wondering what the show is going to be about. What are they running from? Why are they running in a golf cart? Why does the golf cart have a question mark on it? You know, like, is this just normal for them? Obviously it is. So, like, it's a really good, like, how much? Like, it's not even a minute long. 50 seconds. And they basically tell you the core premise of the whole series in that one little cold open. And that's actually really, really impressive. Now, I don't think that you need to do that with every series. I think, with certain series, like, that amount of intrigue and whatever, real articulate, Ryan. But, like, I think that building a sense of intrigue and not, 100% giving you right from the beginning what the show is all about is a really good way to do certain other shows. But in this one, they had 50 seconds to tell you what this entire show was going to be about, and they did. It's going to be about these two characters being chased by weird creatures and having to deal with these sorts of shenanigans. So, like, but it leaves enough unanswered that you want to watch more. to figure out what these weird creatures are. Where do they come from? How do they deal with it? What is going to be, what is the dynamic between Dipper and Mabel? What is, all of these questions, but also the important ones are answered for a series like this. And that is really, really well done. I am 50 seconds into this show and I already have that much to say about it. This is gonna be a thing. Why do I hate enjoying things? Okay, so I've actually seen that episode, or at least most of it, before. Oh my god, cars. Why are there so many cars? Why are they all so loud? But yeah, I've actually seen that episode once before. It's alright. As far as first episodes go, it's good. I did not think it was the first episode, though, to be honest. I think I've seen the next one, too. I don't actually remember, but I guess we're about to find out. Okay, so I'm on episode 5. I just finished episode 5. Okay, so in episode 2, I feel like that episode was superfluous in just about every way. I feel like the intention of that episode was to establish a familial tie with Grunkle Stan. But everything else about his character so far is just so unlikable. He's just not meant to be a likable character. But there was that episode where they bonded for like the last minute of the 20-minute episode. And it's like, I feel like that entire episode needed to have something more to it, right? Like the biggest mystery that came of that episode was there actually is a monster in the lake, but that didn't feel like that was a mystery that they were going to come back to, so much as it was just, oh, by the way, yeah, there was that robot, but there really is a monster in the lake because this is Gravity Falls and things are weird here. Oh boy. And it's like, And then, like, all the other episodes seem to be trying to establish something, right? So most of these episodes seem to be establishing that Dipper uses the book to figure out the weakness or whatever it is that's being weird in Gravity Falls. He uses the book to, learn more about whatever weird monster of the week they're facing. Or in the episode where they introduced Gideon, they introduced that he has his own book. So, like, yeah, okay, so that episode, they're adding more to the overall mystery. And they're establishing a arc villain. That's a pretty good episode on its own. Headhunters, I honestly don't remember what Headhunters was supposed to be. It wasn't that that was the episode with the wax figures, right? Yeah, that episode was completely pointless. Except now there's a wax head in their vent system, I guess. Cool. Whatever. I doubt they'll come back to that. Maybe they will, but if they do, I'm not really feeling it. Then the next one was the hen that rocks the Mabel, which I am assuming was the Gideon episode, so fine. And then the inconveniencing, which was the last episode. The only thing they really established was that Dipper had a crush on Wendy. Whoa. I will say, I've seen the episode where that plot thread comes to a head, where he does inevitably admit his feelings to Wendy and they have a talk. And I've seen that, and it's a really cathartic way of resolving the plot. And I really actually thoroughly enjoyed that. But I want more mystery. I want more clues. I want to know more about this mystery, and I don't want to know all at once. And I feel like a lot of this is padding, and I think that is down to the fact that these are 20-minute episodes instead of 10-minute episodes. With Star vs. Evil, they were 10-minute episodes, and nothing felt dragged out because the episode was over, or that, Monster of the Week, Challenge of the Week plot was over quickly enough that it never really overstayed its welcome. And I genuinely didn't think that I was going to like longer episodes better, but I'm starting to realize that, or I didn't think I was going to like shorter episodes better, but I'm starting to realize that I do. At least in this case, I think that shorter, more skit-like episodes would have been a lot better for the format that they're choosing to go with in Gravity Falls. I think the episodes should be half as long because a lot of them just feel drawn out. And it's not great, right? Like, I wish it was better. The Headhunters episode was completely superfluous. It didn't establish anything. Dipper didn't use the book to solve that problem because it wasn't a problem that was in the book. And that's the biggest problem, is these first few episodes are all about establishing that Dipper is using the book to solve the problems of the weird things happening in Gravity Falls. And there's this whole mystery around the books and where did they come from and, who wrote them and all of that stuff. I already know the answers to all of that, but I want to see that mystery unfold. That is why I'm watching this. Even spoiled for the ending, I want to see how we got to that point. I don't want to just know the ending. I want to experience that journey, and I feel like I can still do that even though I know where the plot's going. The problem is, I'm not seeing those hints. And a lot of it, I have, where the things that I do appreciate are things that I only appreciate with the benefit of foreknowledge. Like the subtle hints to Bill Cipher in Dipper and Mabel's window, or, in the opening where he flashes in for a second. Like, that's cool. And I enjoy that attention to detail. I just wish there was more of that in the actual show. Like, I wish there was some of that in the actual story. I want to, I want something to happen with this mystery. I want a new clue to chew on while I'm watching this Monster of the Week plot. And again, I think that would be a lot better if these were 10-minute episodes instead of 20-minute episodes. And I think that's the big problem, is that these feel like they're overstaying their welcome. The plots seem drawn out. And now I'm about to watch this entire episode about how Dipper doesn't feel manly or whatever. And it's just... I'm visibly, physically sighing at this. And it sucks because I really want to enjoy this series because I know it can be really good. Like I said, I saw the episode where Dipper actually does have to confess his feelings to Wendy, and it's a really, nuanced episode. The plot, the conversation that they have is got a lot of character to it, and it approaches these sorts of, unrequited crushes very level-headedly instead of just playing it for drama. They have a very healthy way of dealing with those emotions, or they demonstrate a very healthy way of dealing with those emotions, and they demonstrate that it doesn't have to be awkward, or you don't have to hate each other afterwards. You don't have to hate someone because they didn't fall in love with you like that. I like that, but we're not getting to that. And every episode can't be a nuanced discussion on, life. It's not that kind of show. but they're not establishing what they should be. They're not bringing the attention to the core engagement of the series. The core engagement of this series, I feel, is supposed to be mystery. And I'm just not feeling that mystery. I'm feeling like they're trying to go for a Scooby-Doo Monster of the Week plot, which is fine. But I want the mystery. And I mean, I'm only a quarter of the way through the first season. So hopefully these complaints die down as I get more episodes. I only felt like chiming in here because they introduced Gideon in like the last 2 episodes, and I felt like I should say something about him. And what I have to say about him is Gideon is a tool. So, I mean, okay. So we finally introduced Bill Cipher. I'm at the end of season 1. I'm on the last episode of season 1. Gideon Rises. I think I've seen this episode. I know how it ends. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not that invested in the show so far. I mean, I was way more invested into Star versus the Forces of Evil than I am with this one. At like relatively the same point. And it's actually a lot different with Gravity Falls because this is the halfway point of the series. Whereas in the end of season 1 in Star vs. Evil it was a quarter of the series because this only has 2 seasons and that had 4. Basic math. That's what you come to my videos for. But like, yeah, so I've seen Bill Cipher now. I was a lot earlier than I was expecting him to show up. I will say that. I thought he was kind of a last few episodes boss villain, and like everything that led up to that was at best background set dressing hints. I have noticed that there are these numbers in the credits of every episode. I don't know what those are for. I'm probably going to look them up after this episode. Whatever mystery it is, I'm sure it's already been solved. My biggest problem with the series so far is that it does exactly that thing I was worried that Star vs. Evil was going to do early on. And it does those, generic plots that are in every single cartoon series like it. They're cringy plots. They're ones where you just kind of sigh because you know what the characters are going to do, and you know it's a dumb mistake and it's completely avoidable. And it's like, and I just don't like those sorts of things. Like, I prefer the conflict of a series to come from things that the characters couldn't have avoided otherwise, or avoiding doing said thing would lead to something else entirely, where basically it's the actions of the characters that further the plot instead of the plot reacting, or it's the plot reacting to the characters instead of the characters reacting to the plot. And that doesn't seem like what this is. This is, things happen to these characters, not because of these characters. And it feels like they don't really have any agency as characters, and they're just there for the sake of plot. I will say that Bill Cipher's, the last episode with Bill Cipher is probably my favorite episode so far, because it gives me all of that stuff that I've been asking for. All those symbols that flashed, those feel like things that I could, if I wanted to, just go and break down. Like if this show was running for the first time and I was watching it during its original run, like those things, I feel like those symbols would be something I could go and do something with. Okay, so I just finished season 1 of Gravity Falls. I think it should have been shorter. which is weird because I never say that about a show, but it felt dragged out in certain places. And there were definitely episodes where I just felt like I was forcing myself to watch it for the sake of this video. The season finale was alright. There was a lot of impact taken out of it because I've seen a lot of it and I wasn't really invested in those scenes prior. Like, this is the first time in the series where I feel like if I hadn't have been spoiled for all of this stuff, I would have been a lot more emotionally invested. So I'm definitely, like, it's not a bad show. It's definitely not a bad show. But I'm feeling very similar to the way I did at the end of season 1 for Star vs. the Forces of Evil. The problem is Star vs. the Forces of Evil had 4 seasons, where Gravity Falls only has 2. So I'm halfway through the series, and I'm still very blasé about the whole series. I will say most of everything I know about the series has already come up. So all of the stuff that I had been spoiled on, except for Bill Cipher at the very, very end, and even then, I don't know exactly how that is resolved. So I know that Bill Cipher is the arc villain, but beyond that, I don't really know much else about the series, now that I think about it. So I don't know. I'm hoping that this season is a lot better, but if I were to really get invested in this series, I would need a lot more time to get invested into the characters, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do that in one season. But I was wrong about some of my assumptions for Star vs. Forces of Evil. So, who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong this time. I really hope I am. But that first season just did not thrill me, and there were a few episodes where I just felt like I was forcing myself to get through it, and the only reason I was doing that was for the sake of making this video. So we'll see, I guess. I'm hoping it picks up. I'm hoping it gets a lot better. This is starting to feel like a more cohesive story. Like, the characters are starting to interact with each other in more and interesting dynamic ways. They're like, you're starting to realize what the relationship between a lot of them are. That episode with Zeus and his birthday, and, you know, Dipper and Mabel going through all of that stuff just to make sure that Zeus had a good birthday. Like, that was genuinely touching. I actually kind of teared up at that a little bit. Like, that was great. I just wish there was more of that in season 1, because it feels largely like season 1 was pointless. Which, again, is not what you want to see in a mystery series. Anyway, I'm going to try to finish out this season by the end of today. This is getting difficult. I'm not going to lie, this is getting rather difficult. Okay, so I just watched the episode where Stan's brother comes back. That was a pretty good episode. I did know about his brother before. So I knew that was going to happen. But even if I hadn't, like, I still would have known that Stan was at his heart a good guy, because, like, that's because it's Disney. Like, they don't do that sort of thing typically. I don't know, that was a good episode. Like I said, this is always the case. I'm enjoying season 2 a hell of a lot more than I enjoyed season 1. And there are still 1 or 2 episodes where it kind of feels like it just slows everything down a bit. But on the whole, this is a really good show. And my biggest problem with the show is that by and large, you could skip most of the first season. Where contrasting that with, the last video I did like this, where I watched Star vs. Evil, you really can't do that with season 1 of Star vs. Evil. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes you could skip, but in this one, you can skip pretty much the whole first season of Gravity Falls. With the exception of, obviously, the first episode, the one that introduces Gideon, and like 3 or 4 episodes, maybe, that drip feed some of the plot, or that deal with the book directly. And, like, that's kind of annoying. I really don't like that. Again, you could get away with half the amount of episodes, probably less than half the amount of episodes in the first season, and tell the exact same story, and set up get the exactly as much setup for the first season. Okay. So obviously I enjoyed the finale. That was good. I liked it. I will say that I enjoyed Star vs. Evil a lot more than Gravity Falls. It has, from a structural standpoint, it has a lot more wrong with it. And I'll go more into this when I do my wrap-up. Yeah, that ending, it was good. I've had my complaints about the show, and I feel like most of this video has been complaining about the show, but the show is not bad. I want to stress that. I don't think that this show is bad. I think that it has some things it could have done a lot better, and there's some pacing and structural issues, to be certain. Especially coming off of a show like Star vs. the Forces of Evil, which was absolutely phenomenal. And it's hard to follow up something like that. I went into this hoping to find yet another new favorite show of all time, like I did with Star vs. Evil. And I didn't find that, but I did find something that was quite enjoyable. That last season was really, really good. I think the show really shines in that last season. And again, I'll go over this more in the wrap-up, hopefully. But that was really good. I liked that finale. And that finale did turn my opinions around on the show quite a bit. There were a couple of scenes I saw in there at some point. But, yeah, it was really good. Obviously, I cried through that. I really did. Call me a sappy baby if you want, but I did. Family moments and friend moments like that get me every single time. I will cry through every emotional moment of Fairy Tail and One Piece, and I cried at the end of Gravity Falls, damn it. And at the end of Star vs. the Forces of Evil, too. And the show has characters that you do love. It just takes a while to get there. So, I'm going to pull myself together, put on my suit, and do my wrap-up. Oh, okay. So, that was Gravity Falls. Overall, not as big a fan as I was of Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I will definitely admit that up front. But it wasn't a bad show. It did get me in the end, as a lot of these shows tend to do. And I want to start by saying I've been pretty hard on the show up until now, just from the as watching standpoint. And I think a lot of that was probably unfair criticism. I think a lot of it is I was trying to find why I wasn't enjoying it as much, and I don't think I really did find any in particular reason in all of that justifying that I did. So the mystery elements, I talked a lot about like the mystery elements, how there was a lot of superfluous episodes, and I stick to some of that. But I do think I was a little unfair on the series early on, and so I'm going to give my more honest opinions of the series now that I've finished it. And that opinion is it was good, but there was a lot of me kind of just forcing myself through certain episodes. And I feel a little cheated by those sorts of episodes because there was no point in forcing myself through a lot of them. Like, they didn't serve any sort of narrative purpose, any sort of overarching importance to the story. There's a lot of episodes that I feel could have just been outright cut from the series as a whole, and it wouldn't have lost anything. And that I feel is a problem. And it's really hard to get every single episode of a series to be 100% necessary to tell the story. It's what we all shoot for as writers, for everything we put in to be of importance or to serve to divert attention from something that is important, so like we can shock the readers or whatever. But in this case, it felt like there was no point to each of these episodes. And I feel like each episode should have some point to it, to the greater story overall. Be it to, create red herrings, to drip feed lore, to add to the greater mystery of the show. Especially, well, in a show like this, every episode needs to matter. Because this is a show that very obviously pays a lot of attention to detail, right? Everything from the tiny designs in the Mystery Shack to the way it was built, to its location. Little things throughout the entire series hint towards the greater threat that is Bill Cipher. And that is fantastic attention to detail. But as a first-time viewer, it doesn't give you a whole lot to work with. And I think that is my biggest problem with it. As a first-time viewer, most of the greatest parts of the show only make sense or only ever really noticed on your second time viewing it. Or at best, halfway through the second season of viewing it. Once you know who Bill Cipher is and you start recognizing all of the triangle imagery around the town and in the shack. And then, you wonder, was that there all along? And then you go back and you watch it from the beginning again, and then you realize that it's all that stuff. And, it lends itself to being rewatched better than it lends itself to being watched the first time through. And I think that's probably my biggest issue with this show. That and 90% of the first season could have been cut with absolutely nothing lost. If you ask me, this show should have been a 26 to 32 episode series and not the 40 episode series that it was. It could have been a lot shorter. If you take the entire first season, and I get that I'm kind of repeating myself here, but bear with me. But if you take the entire first season, you keep the first episode, you keep the episode that introduces Gideon, you keep the episode that introduces Pacifica, probably, because you're going to want her for later. And then you keep the finale of the first season. And as long as you have those basic elements and you know, old man McCucket or whatever his name was sprinkled in here and there, because he's probably the only one that actually seems superfluous but is actually necessary to the plot, and I don't think he gets any screen time in the episodes that I mentioned. So as long as you have those elements and you tack them on to the beginning of season 2 and you just get rid of everything else in season 1, yeah, I argue you would probably have a much better, much more coherent, much more engaging series. And I would be much more invested in the characters than I already was if I didn't sit there complaining about how dumb they were for an entire episode at a time. Another problem, I think, with this show is, and I didn't expect to have this opinion, I think each episode was too long. And I mentioned this earlier in one of my previous takes, I think. But it was... if each episode had been 10 minutes long instead of 20 minutes long, those episodes where I felt like I had to force myself through it would have felt a lot less annoying. And there were points where I just could not bring myself to finish an entire episode in one sitting. Like, I just couldn't. I was so done. I wasn't enjoying what I was watching, and that's a huge problem. Because if I didn't have to do this for this video, I would have dropped off. I would have dropped the show entirely because I was just not enjoying it. That said, I'm glad I didn't drop the show. Again, like, I'm kind of parroting what I said about Star versus the Forces of Evil in this point, but I'm glad I didn't drop the show. I'm probably never going to go back and rewatch it. I might rewatch Star, but I'm definitely not going to ever come back to Gravity Falls. Honestly, there's just if I ever did, I would skip a good deal of season 1, exactly like I said, and I probably would enjoy it a whole lot more if I did that. I don't know. Should I start giving these ratings? Should I do, like, should I go full on, like, review show and just give the show a rating? 3 weird sweaters out of 5. But in all seriousness, I enjoyed the show. It was good. I'd recommend it for people who really like cartoon shows like this, who are more into, like, Western cartoon shows, for people who want a sort of simple, rudimentary mystery to go through. If you somehow haven't been spoiled on this show up until this point, try to avoid spoilers as much as possible. I feel like that did probably ruin a lot of it for me. Even though I was approaching this from the perspective of somebody who hadn't been spoiled on it, I obviously have, and there's only so much I can, curtail my own bias on that front. So I might have enjoyed it a lot more if I hadn't been spoiled for, like, the ending and all of that. But I enjoyed the ending a lot, actually. Like, the ending is probably my favorite part of the show, which sounds like a horrible thing to say, but it's the truth. So, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm being too harsh on Gravity Falls? Do you think that it deserves all of the strange sweaters? Or do you think that maybe Gravity Falls was more overrated than even I'm giving it credit for? Do you think that I wasn't harsh enough on the series? Let me know in the comments, and while you're down there, if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button, turning on the notification bell, liking, and sharing the video. Wow, that is a long list of crap to say. There's gotta be a better way of doing that. Yeah, there's probably not, because like all of those things are super necessary for algorithm things. It's really weird, actually. Although the most important one is probably sharing. Subscribing and notifications are really good too. Probably like in order: share, notification, subscribe, comment, like, are probably like in order of importance. Those are probably the most important things for a YouTube video to for a YouTuber, like in order of importance. I already said that part. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm bad at ending videos.